everybody, we're back up at the property today. We're actually having our friends and family day here today, when we like to sort of gather some friends and family around, celebrate the fact that we have such a beautiful place to be. Hi Benny. Just be able to like hang out, do some things and a little more relaxing. It can be a lot of work to have a property like this, but we do like to take the time to just celebrate and relax. We're doing some tours today. The garden just over here. I've been taking people through the garden, sort of showcasing the things that we've got. We just had our field mowed just up that way. Had a friend come in, take care of it. We've also been touring around, sort of if you just kind of look over the shoulder, you can see this is more of a deciduous forest up here. The deciduous forest, that's where we do our maple syrup. So this is the interior of our garden. We made this garden about 5 years ago. Originally it was just a field. This is one of the first things that my father and I did at the property, was to create this garden space. So we have a 2-wheel tractor, a BCS. And we took this harrowing tool and we just broke up the dirt and grass and took out all the chunks, made it kind of look like the dirt, I guess. Brought in some manure and we started this. So this is about 100 by 100 feet, which is about a 1/4 acre garden. We have the north side is more of the perennial style thing. So we have our fruit orchard up there. We have our fruit bushes and we have vines. So we have like raspberries and blueberries over there. Then everything on the south side of that is more annual stuff that we plant every year. So we have, you know, peppers and tomatoes, and we can go look at all those things. But I think the most exciting part of the garden at this time of year is the maturation of the corn. So this is Navajo corn, and you'll notice that there's an electric fence around it. So the first year that we grew corn in this garden, I was very excited. We had an excellent germination. It was almost ready to be picked. We went to sleep in the trailer. We woke up in the morning, and 1/3 of the corn had been eaten and pulled and knocked over, and we were absolutely devastated. And we realized that the raccoons were coming in just at the point that it was ripe and just decimating it. So at that time, we tried to quickly put up a fence to prevent them from coming in. Didn't work, went to sleep, woke up again in the morning, and another 1/3 of the corn was decimated. And we were so upset. So that winter, I bought an electric fence, which is what keeps our corn safe from those critters, so that they don't get to eat it, we get to enjoy it.
So I heard from this style of people they're not going to sponsor the channel, so I'm just going to have to hold my beer like this.
Yeah, just cover it. You got it.
So I want to ask you a question, because I know, talking to you, just how much work the garden is, like weeding and keeping up with it, and you're not living here full time yet, so you got to come to drive here. How long a drive is it for you?
It's about an hour and a half, I would say, one way.
One way, and I've had the pleasure of being here to spread manure with you in the spring.
If you want to look down the way there, that is the remnants of the manure pile this year.
But I do want to talk about the thing that, like, I know how much upkeep it is, but the thing that I most marvel at is the fence.
Yes.
Because the fence was a ton of work. Tell me about how this fence got built.
So not unlike the electric fence that we sort of put up as a reaction to the raccoons getting into our corn, we realized we would need a fence. There's a lot of deer in this area. So we have deer and we have rabbits, and they get into and will eat many things in this garden, including our fruit trees, lettuces, spinaches, things like that. So we counted it up and we needed to pull 64 logs, vertical cedar logs, to make the posts.
And the garden was smaller first, right?
So it was always this size,
okay.
But we only fenced a smaller portion of it because, again, we were reacting because we planted a bunch of beautiful lettuce, right. Went to sleep, woke up, and the bunny had come in and had eaten a lot of it. So we realized we needed to work quickly. So we cut down and cleaned all of these poles from around the property. We had the lumber already for the fence rails here, and we quickly put it up, and we put some like wire mesh sort of at the bottom rung section, so that we could prevent the rabbits from getting in. We put this in about maybe 2 days. And
digging the fence.
Fortunately, we started with something, and I will show this in another video. My father actually built something. I think you're familiar with a post pounder, right? That you would put like T-posts in with?
Yeah.
My dad made one of these called Big Bertha, and it weighs about 300 pounds. He built it himself. It's got this huge iron cannon with these huge metal poles. And he's like, you can pound in enormous posts with this, bigger than T-posts. The problem was, no single person can lift it.
No.
So you'd have to be able to lift it up over your head and pull it down. And you might get like maybe 1 or 2 of these before you're like exhausted. So what we ended up doing is renting a post pounder, the type that they use when they put in telephone poles out on the rural routes. So that's how we put in the majority of these.
So you didn't have to dig the holes. You literally just like put
Pounded
this log on the ground, and then pounded them in. How far deep did they go?
So we measured each one of them off. They're about 2.5 to 3 feet in. And the reason that's a little bit shallow, for being honest, the reason is that about a foot under this this topsoil, it's gravel. This area, this whole area where we are in sort of Durhamish, Ontario, there's gravel. There's gravel pits up and down this road. So in this particular case, when you're pounding these posts in, we hit a lot of stones.
Right, no doubt.
And we had to just keep pounding away. So to continue a little bit of the garden tour, we have 9 rows that are north of what I sort of have this middle lane where I keep the manure pile. And then we have 5 rows to the south side of that. So we've already looked at the corn section a little bit. We wouldn't have had a chance to see it, but on the farthest side south, we've pulled out the garlic last week. So we had 500 bulbs of garlic in there. We take them out in bunches of 10 and hang them in our lean-to to dry and cure. And then after about maybe 2 to 3 weeks, we just trim them up and then they're ready for sale. Also over here, almost at the end of its life, are the pea plants. This is a nice earlier spring crop. We just harvested them over the course of the last couple weeks. These 2 remaining rows on the south side are both full of what I call like the vines. So it would include, starting over sort of most south, those are 3 acorn squash plants, which look absolutely enormous. Well, at another time we can go through and look at some of the fruit that is produced. Over here we have some butternut squash. Well, since you're so close by here, let's have a little peek. Let's get a little peek. Woo-wee!
That's a beaut.
That's buttery, nutty goodness. So further up this row here, we've got, and I don't usually grow this, so I will tell you a little story. My dad, for plants like this, he starts out, hey Benny, we start out with the plants at my dad's place and he brings them. So he'll start seeding different plants out, but it's always hard to know exactly what he's going to bring me because he's a bit of a wild man. So he's been trying to get me, here's some pumpkins by the way, not the point of the story, but there's some pumpkins that are starting. He tries to get me to grow watermelons every year because we get a ton of sun in this garden. It's beautiful, good quality soil. I resist all the time because it's very hard to finish watermelons in my experience here in this garden. But he got me to grow one this year, and lo and behold,
That's a watermelon.
that's a watermelon. Just hanging out in there. Might be a cantaloupe in here somewhere. There's some cucumbers just a little bit further up the lane there. And these are all zucchinis, which have massive yields every single year. So we'll be sending our friends and family home with a zucchini or 2. So we're on the north side of the garden now. As I said, there's 9 rows over here. Just to my left, we actually have an empty row here kind of between it, but those are potatoes. We're growing 3 new varieties of potato this year. I don't remember them all off the top of my head, but my lady really likes new potatoes. Potatoes, you pull them a little bit earlier in the season. They're not for storage. They have that very soft skin before it's set that you can kind of slough off. She's Czech. She loves having it with like just butter and dill, just boiled. Blows her mind. So she's like, we got to grow that. So I'm trying to grow that this year. I'll keep you posted on how they turn out because we're just about to dig them. A little further down this row, you can see we have 3 varieties of onion. Nearest to us, we have red onions, and then we have leeks, and then we have yellow storage onions. The next row beside it, very excited about this row. This is what I call the brassica row. So we have ourselves beautiful green cabbages for making coleslaw or making sauerkraut. We have a few, just to kind of keep her up in this end. Let me get my head out of the shadow there. A little broccoli coming there. We also, if we keep looking up this way, you can see this is a treat not everybody knows about. This is a kohlrabi. Again, huge in the Czech community. They absolutely love it. They eat it like an apple or thin sliced on bread. I don't get it, but it is delicious. Kind of tastes like broccoli stems. And we also have red cabbage. So this row is just loaded with the good broccoli stuff. Behind me, we have some sunflowers. This row, without looking at it too closely, we have some beets. We have some green and yellow beans at the far end. The row beside that, we have 2 varieties of carrots and some parsnips. Up this end, we have a panting dog. Oh, I'm on the move. Trying to figure out the tomato cages, Benny. And then we have some parsley here. And then what Benny just discovered is 3 or 4 varieties of tomato, followed by 4 or 5 varieties of peppers. So we're entering the perennial side of the garden. To my embarrassment, right here we have sort of a row that starts the perennial side of asparagus. For whatever reason, this is the row I never weed. I just never get to the bottom of this one. I always start on that side. I make it about 1/3 of the way through, and then I just lose steam on it. So it is here. You can see it. These are what asparagus look like when they sort of grow out, this kind of ferny thing. And one year, I'm going to weed it. But if we break into the perennial side proper, we've set ourselves up some grapevines here. I think if we
Oh yeah.
inside we can see some grapes.
Gonna get
Lots
right in
of
here.
Grapes. Let me just pull them out of the way there. Grapes. So these grapes will start green, but they will mature to a nice black grape called Vanessa. Delicious. Now this is an apple tree, one of the first 2 apple trees that I planted on the property. Last year we had a bumper crop, crazy. Couldn't believe how many apples we got. So I decided it was time to prune it, as you do when you have a bumper crop, which means that this year's crop is essentially non-existent. However, if you want to see what the apples look like, there's one just hiding right here. It's a beautiful green, and it will have more pronounced red stripes when it becomes ripe. I would say this is probably like, sort of like a milder Honeycrisp. That was the sort of idea. This is also an apple tree. I don't actually think there is a single apple on it, but man, I pruned the heck out of it. I did a really good job of pruning it. So good that we got no fruit. So I guess that is what it is. In the garden, we've tried lots of different things up on the perennial side. We've had a bunch of cherry trees. The cherry trees never really worked out. We tried nectarines, no love. We have 2 pear trees here side by side. And for the first time ever, we're actually gonna get more than 1 pear. There's just a little tiny one, little baby. But if you can look at the tree sort of in the distance over there, there are tons of pears on that one. They will be delicious. So as I said, we haven't had much success with cherry trees. However, I did some reading about romance cherry bushes. So this will grow like a regular, it'll produce a regular cherry, but it comes in like bush form. So this is a romance cherry. I have a few of them kind of kicking around, but this is the biggest one. So it's a little bit young to get fruit, but I'm hopeful that we will get some cherries there since I've had no love from the trees. This beauty right here, I didn't prune this year. I will need to prune it next year, but I will tell you, this is a European plum tree. So it gives those nice dark purple plums you're used to seeing in farmers markets. Every spring this thing is loaded with fruit, and every spring it almost all drops off for whatever reason. Sometimes it's a frost, sometimes it's not enough water, whatever. But this year, there are, I think we're kind of backlit from the sun, so I don't know that we'll actually see it, but there are 2 of them up over there that are going to eventually ripen to that dark, dark purple. And
I don't see nothing.
Maybe somebody ate them already. I've already done a couple of tours today. Maybe somebody was like, this looks great, man. You probably have tons of these. The tree that's directly behind me, though, is more of that North American plum we're used to. The ones that are a little more round, kind of that yellowy flesh inside. And I'll put one you can actually see. You can see one at the end of that branch up there. That one you'll see for sure. And there's probably another dozen or so around the tree. Also the first time I'm getting fruit from this tree. So fingers crossed that we're managed to make it through. Just one more thing. We're going to come through the bush here. You can do it. Safe and sound. This section's always been a bit of a work in progress. We've had raspberries here, we've had strawberries here, and because of the inherent kind of fieldiness of it, it's very hard to maintain the weeds. This is the one blueberry bush that has survived. We have a gooseberry, we have some red currants, and we have some Saskatoon berries. These are all doing like okay. But we recently just mowed the whole thing down because I'm just sick and tired of it looking like just a big weedy jungle. And what you'll see at the fence line is a bunch of cedar lumber we're going to use to construct raised beds in this section. So that instead of fighting with tilling and keeping the dirt clear instead, I've got a push mower that's being repaired right now. I'm going to be able to mow in here so that it looks more like orchard grass rather than having to till it all the time. That's a job on the horizon, maybe a job for a boys' weekend. Probably not quite big enough, but that'll be on the horizon.
Just to get to where we're headed. It's been a long road, baby. Those highway signs flying by. We've been living this life in the fast lane lately. But baby, it's been driving me crazy. Would you say maybe we take this next exit?